Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hello, Fireside. It is Kurt Austin Live. Well, your crash test dummy here on Fireside. We are here this evening, 7:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm a couple minutes late. Had a bit of a technical difficulty because I forgot to plug in my lightning adapter because I'm having some headphone problems. But anyway, we are here again, starting out Fireside with Crash Test Dummy. The episode today, we're talking about Pine for Contractors. What does that mean, Pine for Contractors? Well, Pine for Contractors is basically Chris Pine has a brand new movie out called The Contractor. What does that mean? Why am I talking about that? Well, because here at Crash Test Dummy, I like to talk about movies. I like to talk about safety. We are talking about how to stay safe in movies. What I like to do is I keep people safe at work. Keeping people safe at work is sometimes a little bit boring, but I love to talk about it all the time. So I also love to talk about movies all the time. What I've done here, what we do here at Crash Test Dummy is we talk about movies. We talk about how they stay safe there. Most of the time it's because of the behind the scenes things that make things interesting. So what we're talking about here tonight in Crash Test Dummy is the movie The Contractor, starring Chris Pine and Ben Foster. Kiefer Sutherland's in there as well. There's some fantastic actors in there, absolutely incredible. So that's what really drew my interest in this movie that's starting. Of course, May 8th was supposed to be the release date, but it's actually streaming out now. Oh, April 8th. So it's streaming out now. And why did I find that interesting? Well, because there's some great stunts in the movie The Contractor. As well in the safety world, we're actually dealing with an awful lot of contractors as well. Contractors are always looking at how to stay safe at work. The contractor in this particular movie has a little bit of a different plot. So the contractor in this case is actually a professional mercenary. So the plot of the whole thing is there's a virus that has been released to the world that is trying to be stopped, and they're making a decision to basically save the world, not save the world. I'm not really sure how it ends because I haven't seen the movie yet. I was hoping to see it over the weekend, but I got waylaid by some Easter festivities. So the whole thing I'm looking forward to seeing. But really, it's basically a special mercenary, Chris Pine and Ben Foster, who have decided to become special mercenaries because they were actually Green Berets. They were in the army. They were discharged for whatever happened, whatever reasons, and so they were picked up by a mercenary team to actually try to make a little bit of money and pay some bills. So that's the sob story portion of what's happening. But the real portion of what's going on in the movie is saving the world through this virus has been released. Very timely. We're talking about that right now. But how do they decide the good and evil of trying to stay safe at work? No. How are they trying to do the fun work at work? How are they trying to do the fun stuff during the safety stunts? How are they trying to discuss in an interesting way the reality of not getting hurt when you're actually trying to perform a stunt? I actually am a little lost in what I'm trying to say about that right now, but really, it's Chris Pine who's talked about his stunt double work as a ballet. So that's what I want to lead into right now, is a stunt double work in the movie The Contractor, starring Chris Pine and Ben Foster. In that movie, Bert Kuntz, I believe it could be how it would be pronounced, is the Green Beret soldier that is a special advisor to the actors in this movie. What is so important about actors in the movie? As stunt doubles, well, they have to work with stunt doubles because they don't want to get hurt on the movie set. I've talked about this before. Actors always try to make sure they put the best performance possible. So they actually like to make sure they put their face in front of the movie camera. They want to be seen. They want to do the best they can. Some actors go too far. Some actors are also very good at it. We've talked about Ben. We've talked about Tom Cruise. We've talked about Brad Pitt, Uma Thurman. So many actors that do a great job at performing stunts with their bodies, but they train for that. A lot of other people like to rely on stunt performers, or as Chris Pine and other people say, stunt doubles. They are professional athletes of some sort who actually train to actually perform these physical maneuvers so that actors can perform on what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to save their face for the camera. They actually are supposed to choreograph, or ballet, as Chris Pine liked to say, what they're supposed to do during the action scene to make you believe what's going on. His portion of this is called basically not looking like assholes, is how we like to phrase it. So by coming in and talking about loopers in this movie, his Rubik's Cube viewpoint of material, is how he likes to refer to this movie, is the action sequences between the stunt performers and himself. How is he going to make the cameras and the angles look good? So he gets together with the stunt performers. In this case, Bert Kuntz actually coordinates how to work in these action contact scenes. There's an awful lot of fighting in this movie. So this whole Contractor movie is about special forces fighting. How do they do it all the time? Well, there's running scenes, there's fighting scenes, there's gun scenes, there's motorcycle scenes through a canal, through a dam, all the incredible stunts you would imagine. I expected there to be hundreds and hundreds of stunts because some of the smallest movies have had over 100 stunts, like I've talked about here on this program before. But no, there are actually only 37 screen credits for stunts in this movie. What does that mean? Well, they're probably doing the same stunts over and over again, or it's a very controlled and safe environment, which I like to think to be more important because you don't want the stunts to take away from what's going on, but you want them to feel like they're part of the movie. And so by becoming part of the movie, it is an actual ballet, a performance between the actors and the stunt doubles and the other actors portraying the opposite character, the good guys and the bad guys, the good and the bad, the virus chasers. How are they supposed to work this dance? So they have these stunt performers work and train on how to move the camera angles, to actually how to perform in a stunt harness, how to actually move and leap off particular springboards, buildings, all that type of idea, and how they're supposed to actually stay safe at work. How do they do that? Well, if you look at some of the older movies back in the 70s and 80s, they had a gentleman by the name of William Dye. Bill Dye. He was a captain in the Army. He was a Green Beret, just like Burt Koontz was for this movie. They're former soldiers who basically train them to actually look like soldiers, act like soldiers, pretend that they're soldiers, and actually once they get past that, they start working with the stunt performers, and they actually try to choreograph the scenes. They can actually then move from pretending to be soldiers to actually choreographing the stunt scenes. How do they do that? Well, as he like to says, he works in the ballet so they don't look like a bunch of assholes, which is basically making sure they work together, keeping the other person safe, keeping people moving, keeping the angle people where they're supposed to be, having the riggers where they're supposed to be, and recognizing the safety of the environment around them. So that when they're doing this dance, when they're actually moving and they're throwing their swings or they're being pulled by a harness, they don't get hurt. They perform and they trust their stunt performers. And in this case, there were 37 stunts that were taking place in this particular movie, this Rubik's Cube material. So, what do contractors have to do with that in the stunt world? Well, these stunt performers, they are contractors. They are private contractors. You find them on LinkedIn as a stunt performer. Not a stunt double because they are performers. You could be a stunt coordinator. You could be a stunt performer. You could be a stunt actor, actress. Mostly it's just stunt actors. But most of them you'll find are usually riggers of some sort. You'll see like a dolly grip in a movie or something to that idea. But most of the time you'll see a stunt rigger. That's when you get into the fall harnesses, that type of idea. The belts that go around their waist or the 5-point harness that go around their shoulders, something that'll pull or push the character actor or the stunt performer to react to what's happening to them. Like I've said before, the actors will have something around their waist that if they get punched or kicked or pushed or fall off a motorcycle or something, they can use a harness to pull them away, to make them react faster. So they don't actually have to harm the person. It just pulls them into a safer area. They can green screen out all the dangerous maneuvers. It's a really cool way of making sure the actor looks very effectively hit, but with the angle, they can actually just be nicely pulled away and then land softly in an actual soft pad. The reverse happens as well. So you go from an accelerator to a decelerator. So when you're jumping off of a building, you can use the same type of rigging as a decelerator. It's called an SRL, just like in the fall arrest business. Instead of going down really quick, it'll slow you down and then slowly release you at the very end of the actual fall. Then you reverse the film and you put it back up and then you run it again and it looks like a reverse image movie. It's a really cool way to make people look like they're falling or jumping at an accelerated pace and not get hurt. That's the whole point of this. So they use this particular sequence in this movie on a motorcycle as a way to pull them off without getting hurt. So they've done this for perhaps in a movie with Uma Thurman and Kill Bill, use this particular actual avenue to pull them out of the car or actually pull them off the bike, and they're not going to get hurt. So you can use that around a mining belts, where they call them, around the waist, or the harnesses around the shoulders. On a full arrest, they actually have to have a suit going around them, so they can't see the little loop around the back of their neck that pulls them off the bike. They use that so they don't have basically a whiplash on the neck. So these stunt performers, or the actors themselves, have to be extremely physically fit to take the reaction or actually hold themselves upright and then perform, say their lines, and hit their mark, at the same time being jury-rigged or pulled off of the motorcycle or off their landing post or wherever they're going to go. So it's a really important part to have upper body strength so that you don't actually collapse over onto the camera, so you can actually have a great scene. That's the whole point of what they're doing here in the movies. In this particular movie, well, I'm actually looking at Ben Foster's character right now as the counterpoint to Chris Pine's character. They're both stunt actors. You know Ben Foster from the movie 310 to Yuma. Again, same type of idea. Instead of motorcycles, they're on horses. Same concept. Is the same idea going all the way back to the Peter Pan movies. It's a simple harness, a simple rigging, pulling someone off a horse or pulling someone off a bike. As long as the stunt performers are aware of their surroundings and what's going to happen, it's a very safe environment. We like to do that. Now, what happens in the real world for contractors is these contractors don't always have the right safety equipment on them. So it's the same type of equipment that, say, a home builder would have. So you look up on top of a roof, someone's building a roof, they'll actually have the same equipment. It's a belt going around the waist, and then an actual 5-point harness, and then a rope that goes on their neck. It's the same thing an actor would use in a movie, except for they green screen out that little portion that goes around the neck. So you can't actually see it. It's hidden around the actual suit, or in the case of a contractor, a 5-point harness is covered up by their actual reflective vest. So the same type of idea. They all have a D-loop at the back of the neck, so they can actually give them a tug, give them a pull, and then make sure they're staying safe at work. So what's the next thing that they look at in that movie? Going on to my next page right here is Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer Sutherland came into this movie probably as a third main character in there as the contract owner, the bad guy, the foil to Chris Pine, and to Ben Foster. Still not too sure if Ben Foster's a good guy or the bad guy in this one. As I said, I haven't seen the movie all the way through, but Kiefer Sutherland plays a really good character. Again, coming back to his Special Forces training, going all the way back to A Few Good Men, if you remember that movie. Kiefer Sutherland, Tom Cruise again, was in that movie. Just a great character going back to the Special Forces field again. How do they get this happening? Well, Kiefer Sutherland plays a very good foil, which actually leads into a great scene that you actually see in the trailers of this motorcycle scene I was talking about before, where Chris Pine is on the motorcycle and you see him going down the canal being chased by two other motorcycles shooting at them. So it's a great scene done by balancing and then green screen. It sounds amazing, and it looks like it'd be an incredible action sequence, but really, it's them standing on a motorcycle, being held up by a harness, pretending to be riding, but then being pulled off again through some sort of safety equipment. It's amazing how the actors can do that, but it's the same type of idea like I talked about in the movie The Batman, where I thought it was an incredible scene, and you see Robert Pattinson driving the actual vehicle and then moving back and forth and fighting with the characters. You think it's amazing doing how they're actually doing the driving. It's the same thing. You have someone sitting on top of the roof using a second vehicle, just driving it on top of the roof. Same concept with someone who's actually not moving the motorcycle, they're just actually pretending to ride the motorcycle. Kind of disappointing, but at the same time, fun. The whole point of green screen acting. So how do they do that? Well, they stay safe at work. Going all the way back again, how do you stay safe in your environment? In the movie business, this particular movie, only 37 action sequences that required stunts, which makes it a very safe environment. I love that part of it because that means people aren't getting hurt. Once more, I'll go all the way back to the movie 7. Brad Pitt cutting his wrist, cutting his hands because he thought it'd be really cool. He put his hand onto that windshield and his car frame and pulled himself out. He cut his hand, he cut his ligaments, he had to wear a cast for the whole rest of the movie. It affects the movie and what's going to happen. But sometimes it works out well. The actual bandages on his hand played into the movie. It worked out great. But what happens if a real actor gets hurt? If an actor gets hurt for real, going back to Patrick Swayze when he fell off that log in Dirty Dancing and shut down production for a few weeks because he hurt his knee. So what do they do when an actual actor does get hurt? Well, that's what insurance is for. Insurance is a very big part of the stunt movie business on movie sets because there's actually a production crew, there's a stunt performance crew, and there's all the stunt performers. Each one has to be individually contracted, so they all have their own insurance policies. Why? Because they're all independent contractors. They all like to stay safe at work, but they also want to perform again the next day. As I said before in this movie, close to 75% of stunt performers in the movies actually don't make a great living, kind of like the real actors. It's the same type of idea. They have to act, they have to perform, they have to actually audition every time to actually get the next part. As well, they have to look like the actor they're trying to become. That's why it's a constantly rotating, changing world, but they're not compensated as well. So what do? They form their own unions and they become actually better actors. They actually start their own production companies and their own stunt working companies. That's where you see most of these people ending up. So that's what we like to talk about here. It's now come up to 7:56 p.m. We like to talk about safety here on Crash Test Dummy. We're talking about safety at movies. We're talking about some of the chase scenes here in the movie The Contractor, starring Chris Pine, Ben Foster, Kiefer Sutherland, some other great actors. Basically talking about how people stay safe at work, going all the way back to Captain Dale Dye to teaching actors how to perform properly as soldiers. In this particular movie, it was Burt Kuntz teaching people how to act as Special Forces Green Berets. Same thing, they all have to act and perform and stay safe while they're actually trying to entertain us. And that's what we like to do. They entertain. I spend my days keeping people safe. I spend 15 minutes every Monday night, give or take, trying to keep people safe at work. It's a little bit of a boring job, but I like to talk about movies. I like to talk about safety. I like to let people know how to stay safe at work. If you ever have any questions, I do appreciate your time. Please come on again next Monday night, 7:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you very much for joining us. Have yourself a great evening. You can end the show, and you take care. Have a good night.